Hi, I'm Ryan Panzer, and today we're going to talk about how and why directors break the 180-degree rule. But before we go about breaking the rule, we need to figure out what it even is. The 180-degree rule is a principle of cinematography which says that the camera should always stay on the same side of an imaginary line of action drawn between two characters in a scene. Breaking the 180-degree rule can be disorienting for the audience because it makes it difficult to place the characters spatially in the scene and understand where they're looking. That's why directors will typically stick to the rule. However, every rule has its exceptions, especially in filmmaking. Take this scene from Inglourious Basterds. Hans Landa, a high-ranking Nazi, is interrogating a French dairy farmer who's protecting a Jewish family. Most of the interrogation is shot as a typical conversation, cutting between an establishing two-shot and a series of shot-reverse shots while staying on the same side of the line of action. But right before the tension climaxes, the camera breaks the 180-degree rule by cutting to the opposite side of the line of action. The sudden jump is disorienting and makes us feel uneasy in the same way the farmer feels uneasy as the Nazi questions him. Here, breaking the 180-degree rule adds to the incredibly tense dialogue of the scene by putting us in the same shoes as the farmer in imminent danger. Let's look at another example. In this scene from Whiplash, abusive band director Terrence Fletcher is growing more and more angry with drummer Andrew Neiman's inability to match his tempo. Similar to Inglourious Basterds, this scene breaks the 180-degree rule in order to create a sense of disorientation and tension. Fletcher's sudden shift from supportive to abusive has taken Andrew by surprise and given him a sense of emotional whiplash reflected physically by the cinematography. Unlike the previous scene, however, the rhythm of the jumps are incredibly important here. The camera cuts back and forth across the line of action in time with Fletcher slapping Neiman.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
This timing has two main effects. First, it helps the audience feel the tempo of Fletcher's slaps, which is important because the entire point of this moment is that Fletcher is trying to get Andrew to match his tempo by slapping him in the face. Second, the jarring cuts coinciding with the sharp sound of the slaps exacerbates the abruptness of both actions, making Fletcher's sudden abuse feel more emotionally impactful.
Or are you gonna be on my fucking time?
I'm gonna be on your time.
In this final example from The Shining, Jack Torrance, current groundskeeper of the Overlook Hotel, meets Delbert Grady, the ghost of the previous groundskeeper. Director Stanley Kubrick breaks the 180-degree rule several times in this scene. The first occurs when Delbert Grady reveals his name to Jack, which Jack immediately recognizes as the name of the former groundskeeper who murdered his family and died a decade before.
Grady, sir. Delbert Grady.
This revelation is when we begin to feel uneasy in the scene, a feeling which is reinforced by the camera's jarring jump across the line of action. The camera continues to jump between either side of the line of action throughout the scene as the tension created by Grady's ghost rises. Similar to previous scenes, this creates unease in the cinematography which matches the unease in the narrative. However, in The Shining, this technique also serves to break the realism of the scene. The many cuts across the line of action calls attention to the cinematography and makes the scene feel constructed, which reflects the possibility that this interaction is only occurring in Jack's mind and is in fact constructed by him. Most examples of breaking the 180-degree rule are, to some extent, meant to disorient the audience, but confusion doesn't need to be the only or even primary effect. Cutting across the line of action can also serve to create a sense of rhythm in the scene or to call attention to the cinematography and break immersion. Thanks for watching.